Tonight, Americans cut their spending dramatically, touching off new fears of recession and another big sell-off on Wall Street. I'm Katie Couric. Also tonight, can John McCain stop Barack Obama's momentum? They'll face off tonight in their final debate before the election. But first, they'll respond to our presidential questions.
Why do you think so many prominent political figures risk so much by being unfaithful to their spouse?
And swept away. The search continues for more than 100 people still missing 1 month after Hurricane Ike.
This is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
Good evening, everyone. We begin with a question so many Americans are asking every day. What happened on Wall Street today? Well, it was all about fear. Fear of a recession. It had investors dumping stock again. The Dow plunged more than 700 points, the second biggest one-day point drop ever. And it means the Dow has now given up all but 127 points of Monday's huge rally. Here's what had the market spooked. The government reported the biggest drop in retail sales in more than 3 years. The financial crisis has Americans afraid to spend. And for stores all over the country, Kelly Wallace reports that is the nightmare before Christmas.
Fears of a global economic crisis kept shoppers out of the stores and away from the showrooms in droves. Auto sales took the biggest hit, down more than $2 million, nearly 4% in September. Furniture and home furnishings fell more than 2%, their biggest monthly drop since February 2003.
For retailers, they basically have already said the season's almost over.
Analysts predict it could be one of the worst holiday shopping seasons for retailers since the 1991 recession, with surveys showing over a third of consumers planning to spend less this year.
Santa's having financial constraints this year, so the sleigh's going to be a little bit lighter.
We're not using cards. We're absolutely, cash is king. So if we have the money, we purchase it. If we don't get it.
With consumers trimming their holiday lists, retailers like Home Depot are stocking Christmas shelves earlier than ever before to try to boost sales, touting the best deals and even
basically what we're trying to do is gain the confidence of the female shoppers.
Holding special clinics to teach their customers how to spend wisely. The goal? Building brand loyalty in an uncertain time.
Retailers are saying, I need to make sure that while I know you're scaling back, you're not going to scale me out of the equation.
Retailers are scaling back, too, hiring fewer salespeople and ordering less inventory, which could mean fewer choices for consumers.
Usually if we're buying, 50 pieces of a toy, maybe this time we're going to buy 20 pieces. So instead of having to order everything, we can split it up.
In addition to ordering less for her neighborhood boutique, Renee Chow plans to slash prices earlier than she ever has and hopes that will make the difference.
As a small business owner, are you worried going into this holiday season?
Yes, I am. I'm definitely worried.
Worried that anxious consumers will leave retailers singing the holiday blues. Kelly Wallace, CBS News, New York.
Anthony Mason is our business correspondent. Anthony, why did the markets respond so strongly today?
Because any way you add up those retail sales numbers, Katie, it equals a recession. I mean, the consumer is 2/3 of the economy. If we slash our spending, a recession is inevitable. And the numbers today are the first hard evidence we have of how bad it's going to be, and they weren't pretty.
It's been such a roller coaster ride. Do we just have to get used to this kind of volatility?
This is still a very fearful market. I mean, take a look at this chart we have, and you'll see that the Dow has closed up or down in triple digits 19 of the last 23 trading sessions. And if you take away Monday's record 900-point rally, the Dow's actually been down every day this month. The market is trying to wrap its mind around two things. First, how long and how deep is this recession going to be? And second, when will the credit crunch start to thaw? And we're just seeing the first signs of that.
Meanwhile, gas prices, I know, are plummeting. On the face of it, that's good news, but not so fast, right?
Right. Well, oil actually went below $75 today. That's about half of what it was in July, which means gas is headed towards $3 in a hurry, maybe even lower. But now take a look at this. The reason is we're simply driving less. I mean, demand was down 10% last week from a year ago. Now, that's a sign, of course, that prices are going to come down, but it's also a sign, Katie, of a deepening recession.
Anthony Mason. Anthony, thank you. All of this economic trouble will certainly be a big part of tonight's presidential debate, moderated by our own Bob Schieffer. And we have our entire political team, correspondents and analysts, ready to cover this final face-off between John McCain and Barack Obama at Hofstra University in Hempstead, New York. Dean Reynolds is there. He's covering the Obama campaign. And Dean, the senator is leading in the polls, so is he just hoping he won't make a mistake tonight?
Good evening, Katie. Well, we're not expecting much different in style or substance from Barack Obama tonight. No adjustments are necessary, according to his chief strategist, David Axelrod, who says tonight all the pressure is on John McCain.
Senator McCain's problem is fundamental, which is he's got a bad argument. He's essentially on the wrong side of history.
Now, if McCain goes negative, Obama, of course, will respond. We're prepared to deal with this, says Axelrod. We will not take it lying down. But look for Obama to play it safe tonight like the man with a 14-point lead that he is. Katie?
Dean Reynolds, Dean, thanks. Chip Reed is also at the debate site covering the McCain campaign. Chip, just 20 days to go. What's the senator's strategy tonight?
Well, Katie, there's enormous pressure on John McCain to shake this campaign up in tonight's debate. At a fundraiser in New York City last night, his supporters were chanting, "Take the gloves off." And it appears McCain may do exactly that. He recently said he plans to, quote, whip Obama's you-know-what in this debate. And he says he'll probably bring up Obama's ties to William Ayers, a domestic terrorist during the Vietnam War. Obama has accused McCain of making those kinds of personal attacks out on the campaign trail, but backing off when they're face-to-face. We'll see what happens tonight. But one thing that could make those personal attacks difficult, they'll be at the same table, just inches apart. Katie?
All right. Chip Reed. Chip, thank you. Jeff Greenfield, our senior political correspondent, has been covering debates since 1980, but he's been a student of them far longer. He has more now about the danger of going negative.
If Senator McCain does bring up Bill Ayers tonight, would that contradict a promise he made just a few days ago?
I respect Senator Obama. We will conduct a respectful race, and we will make sure that everybody else does too, and that's important. But there are stark differences between us.
And will his tone be as tough as his running mate's was?
Our opponent is someone who sees America as imperfect enough to pal around with terrorists who targeted their own country.
And is all this fair game? Yes, says a conservative writer.
I think, if anything, they should have pressed earlier and with greater force on Obama's associations.
It's dangerous, argues a liberal columnist.
If he wants to say your association with Jeremiah Wright or with William Ayers because they're too left-wing or they're too anti-American, whatever, that's all fine. You or I may not agree with it, but it's different from calling someone and being involved with active terrorists, palling around with terrorists. That's the line.
A one-time Ronald Reagan speechwriter says the tone strikes a discordant note.
Throwing away lines like palling around with domestic terrorists is vulgar. It's vulgar. It's not high enough for a presidential or vice presidential candidate.
And there's a purely tactical question here. Does such attacks work? If the polls are any indication, McCain's campaign has wound up hurting him far more than Obama. If he needs an argument to change minds, this may not be it, Katie.
But a lot of people are wondering right now, with just hours to go, will John McCain bring up Reverend Jeremiah Wright, or will he just not go there? What do you think?
You know, the relationship between Obama and Wright was much closer and much longer than the Ayers-Obama relationship, but McCain has ruled out of bounds, possibly because he thinks it would be playing the race card. To bring it up now, 20 days out, after having not raised it for months, is very problematic. And on a day when the Dow has lost, $1 trillion or so of America's wealth, that may not be what Americans want to hear about, but his most earnest supporters are saying that's what you got to do. Really interesting dilemma for him.
All right, we'll see what happens. Jeff Greenfield. Jeff, thanks so much. Let's go now to our two political analysts. Dee Dee Myers was press secretary to President Clinton. She's in Washington tonight. Dan Bartlett was communications director for President Bush. Dan is out at Hofstra University on Long Island. Dee Dee, let me start with you. If Senator McCain does decide to bring up Bill Ayers and Reverend Wright, we heard the campaign saying Barack Obama would not take it lying down, but how should he handle it in your view?
Well, he should answer any charges that come up forcefully. If the Ayers charge comes up, Senator Obama needs to remind people that Bill Ayers is not and never has been an advisor or close friend, that they served together on a board funded by the conservative Annenberg Foundation that gave education grants. And finally, that Obama condemned those actions as soon as he learned about them. And then he needs to remind voters, you know, if Senator McCain wants to make this about Bill Ayers' past, I want to make it about your future. And he needs to get back to talking about his plans to help people keep their homes, keep their jobs, keep their health care, to protect that same reassuring presence and to remind people this is about hope and change.
And Dan, in fact, Barack Obama has scored some points, it seems, in these debates with his steady, sort of calm demeanor. So would you advise John McCain to try to rattle him, get under his skin a bit?
Frankly, no, Katie. I think he's proven in all these debates that he's very good under pressure. But there is a way in which John McCain can have a positive contrast. The historic nature of the times we live in, both in the economy and the war, there's a way for John McCain to talk vividly and forcefully about his own experience, why his experience and judgment matches the moment of our country, and therefore Barack Obama's doesn't. That's going to be important to do it in a way that doesn't look desperate. He's behind in the polls, and if he's lashing out at him, I don't think it'll be well received by the American people.
All right,
Katie?
Dan Bartlett and Dee Dee Myers, we'll talk to you a bit later tonight. Thank you both, as always. Our television coverage of the debate begins at 9 Eastern Time, followed by a live webcast at cbsnews.com and cnet.com, our new digital partner. In other news tonight, former First Lady Nancy Reagan is in the hospital, seen here in Washington last month. Mrs. Reagan fell at home in California last week and broke her pelvis, but didn't seek medical help until Monday. Nancy Reagan is 87. She's expected to be in the hospital for several days, and of course, we wish her well. Coming up next, right here on the CBS Evening News, our special series, Presidential Questions. Among the questions tonight, why do political figures sometimes cheat on their spouses? Tonight's presidential debate will give voters a chance to hear the candidates' positions on important issues like fixing the economy. But throughout this campaign, we've tried to give you a better sense of who these men are and what makes them tick. Tonight, another installment of our special series, Presidential Questions, Character, Leadership, and the Candidates. You and your opponent have both been criticized as elitists. Given the way you live today, why isn't that a valid criticism?
Well, look at how I came up. Raised by a single mom. Family had very little money when I was growing up. We were on food stamps at some point. I went to school on scholarships. Michelle, coming from the south side of Chicago, to a working class shift worker who never graduated never even went to college, and a stay-at-home mom. That's our background. And up until, I can provide you the date exactly, up until I spoke at the Democratic National Convention, where suddenly my book sold as a consequence of people knowing who I was. We were living in a three-bedroom condo that was already getting too small, 2 kids, no college fund set up yet, not much of a retirement fund to speak of. At the end of every month, sometimes having to figure out whether or not we could pay all the bills. So the things that middle-class families are going through right now, Michelle and I went through 5 years ago. So the point is that we are about as ordinary a pair, a couple, as probably has ever embarked on this journey to the White House.
I think it's the Ivy League education that somehow going to Harvard Law School and being head of the law review, and for Michelle going to Princeton and Harvard Law School, it puts you in this rarefied air.
I think it's an interesting point, and Michelle talks about this quite a bit because, and sometimes this is something that in the African American community has been a problem, is, as Michelle puts it, we have done everything that you said you wanted your kids to do, right? We worked hard, we focused on school, we, reached for, what we were told was the best education possible. To then suggest that that makes us elitist or that we're no longer part of the community, which again is not only been part of the public dialogue, but Michelle and I and a lot of other African Americans sometimes have to struggle with. The notion is if you're authentic in the community, then it means that you wouldn't go to a place like Harvard. I think that's a perverse incentive, a perverse message in terms of what we want to send to our kids.
Well, let me just say to start with that I grew up as the son of a naval officer. I believe that most Americans would believe that that's an elitist lifestyle. In fact, It entails a lot of sacrifice on the part of the family. Second of all, I lived for 5.5 years without a kitchen table or a chair in a small cell, sometimes by myself. But the point is that you get in touch with the American people by doing the town hall meetings, where you hear the hopes and the dreams and the aspirations and the concerns of the American people, and you come in direct contact with them. In all due respect to programs like these, you can look into people's eyes and hear what's on their minds, and that way you can learn so much about what you need to do for them in America, especially in these tough times. There are people that are coming to these town hall meetings that have just lost their jobs, that are facing losing their homes. That's the way you stay in touch with the American people, in my view.
Why do you think so many prominent political figures risk so much by being unfaithful to their spouse?
I have no idea, because my attitude is the more I'm in public, I mean, I don't even want to pick my nose. You know? I'm assuming everybody's watching, and it's just it's an interesting. I'll leave that to the psychologists, but I find that the more I'm in the public eye, the more I want to make sure that people. That there's no gap between who I am and the face that I'm presenting in the world. You know, you want people to know that what you say is what you mean, and that's who you are.
I don't know, Katie, and I don't understand people's personal lives, and so I can't comment on that. I think it's something that I really am not running for president to address, and I can't comment on it.
Isn't it, though, bizarre, though, when you think about it? Senator Eliot Spitzer, recently John Edwards, President Clinton. I think it's very befuddling to many people in this country.
Yeah, but I also am reminded of the biblical admonition about judge not. And so I really don't make any comments about that because, frankly, I want to be a good president and try to lead an honorable life, and I've been an imperfect servant, and so I'm not judging.
Tomorrow night, how the candidates would improve education in this country in our continuing series, Where They Stand. And coming up next, more than 130 people still missing 1 month after Hurricane Ike. More than a month after Hurricane Ike slammed into the Texas coast, they are still digging through the devastation in Galveston County. Damage is estimated at $11.4 billion, $2 billion in Galveston alone. The death toll is 61, but many more are still missing. Hari Srinivasan is in the hurricane zone.
It's all gone.
Mark Davidson of Crystal Beach was in his home when Hurricane Ike struck. The storm surge tore his house off its foundation and flung Mark, a 20-year veteran of the Coast Guard, out into the raging water.
So you went how far in the current? How far did I went about 14 miles all the way over to Smith Point.
Just drifting?
Drifting all night.
For how many hours?
It was, I got rescued at about 5:30 the next day, so it was about 16 and a half to 17 hours.
The storm surge from Hurricane Ike swept Mark's house and almost everything else off Bolivar Peninsula clear across a section of Galveston Bay and several miles inland into Chambers County. Today, there are at least 54 debris fields spread out across 80 square miles. Authorities are still using cadaver dogs to search for the 137 people still missing.
The biggest frustration is the not knowing. It's like we're looking for a needle in the haystack out here, looking for these bodies.
71-year-old Dolores Brookshire is among those still missing. Brookshire made one last phone call to her cousin Joanne Meir on the day of the storm, fearing that she would not make it out alive.
I called to tell you goodbye and I love you, and I'm going to drown.
In addition to the missing, thousands more are still suffering. Almost 8,000 households are still in temporary FEMA housing, And more than 400 people are still living in a tent city in Galveston. While the beaches may be open, there is hardly anyone on them, and that's taking a financial toll as well.
Hotels are damaged, restaurants and entertainment venues are out of commission.
Meanwhile, people like Mark Davidson feel like the nation no longer cares what happens to them.
They forgot about us and moved on to the stock market.
Hari Srinivasan, CBS News, Crystal Beach, Texas.
I'll be back later this evening with a final presidential debate moderated by Bob Schieffer. Our live television coverage begins at 9 Eastern Time, followed by a live webcast on CBSNews.com and CNET.com. Our new digital partner, our special guest tonight on our webcast, Senator Hillary Clinton. That is the CBS Evening News for tonight. I'm Katie Couric. Thank you for watching. I'll see you again soon.